I am Preston Jefferson Arrowweed. The interesting name we were talking about, the arrowweed. They say the arrowweed was the first plant that came up in the beginning of the earth, and it's so straight that you can actually push some leaves off, dry it, and it'll be a good arrow. And they use those arrowweeds for purification too. You smoke people with it, you burn it, the smoke, and it purifies people too for ceremonies. I grew up on the Fort Yuma Indian Reservation, the Quechan Nation, the Quechan people. The Quechan tribe is located directly across from Yuma, Arizona, where the river goes right into Mexico. That's the only way I can describe it, in Southern California. I think that when people in the East were living in houses with running water and probably electric, we were still in these little mud houses. And so for that reason, I believe some of our stories are different. We weren't influenced by the civilization that came. In my case, stories were told just about anywhere. Like I'll give you an example about like my grandson and I. Him and I were going down this road, and a jackrabbit goes running through. And he says, "Grandpa, look at that big rabbit." I said, "That's a jackrabbit." He said, "How do you know?" I said, "Look at the ears, longer." "Oh," I said, "Jackrabbits, are they different?" He said, "Oh, they're the same, but they're just made a little different." And it comes into our stories a little different. And he was saying, "What?" I said, "Well, the jackrabbit is the one that started a mirage out in the desert. This man came upon him, and so that the jackrabbit, he ran. But in order to divert them, he started a mirage. So they were looking at the mirage, thinking there's water out here, and yet the jackrabbit did that so that he can get away." And so that's the story about the jackrabbit. So that's how I told it, because it called for it just at that time. I think one of the favorites that many kids learned about was the coyote, for instance. He was always getting in trouble. They say that he went on a journey. There was these twins. So when he stopped there, he said, "I'd like to stay overnight." I said, "Fine, you can stay here. There's some jars right there. So you can eat that one, but this jar, don't open it. Just eat out of this jar, and it'll be okay. You have water and everything." So they left. And then they noticed this big storm where they came from, dust flying and just great noise. And he looked and said, "Oh no, he opened that jar." So they went back right away, and when they got there, there's the coyote's body all torn up and stretched all over the place. I said, "What are we doing?" I said, "Well, let's put him back together." So those two twins had power, so they put him back together. And they said, "You did it, didn't you?" And I said, "Well, I didn't know." I said, "We told you not to open that. Leave it alone." So he says, what is in there?" I said, "Well, that jar is a good jar. You get life from, you eat, okay? That jar there is war. That is war. You don't touch that. That is the power you cannot control. It'll overwhelm you. It'll kill you. It'll kill everything. Never touch that." You know, and it kind of reminds me of Ward Valley and the atom. You know, Ward Valley is going to be like a graveyard for the nuclear waste. They want to bury it, but it's still alive. And that's what's the danger of that is the radioactive waste they want to bury there. And there's aquifers, and if it rains, it might go into there, and then it'll go into the Colorado River, which is just 18 miles from there. So we say no. And it reminds me of those twins that was telling that coyote, "Don't do it, because you know what you're going to unleash that power that's going to kill." And the coyote is not going to leave it alone. The coyote mentality will destroy us. Gold, it's been told, is the snake's blood. The snake was accidentally created in anger. The creator, he had this stick and he was sticking it in the mud, and then he threw it down when he was angry, and it became a snake. Later on in the story, they said they have to get rid of him because he's getting too powerful. They cut him up, and the body became boulders and rocks, and the mountains were the part of that snake, and his blood became gold. And the Quechan knew about gold on where we were from. We never bothered it. We never touched it because we knew that it was dangerous. I think that it's not going to do is to sit here and pray. The Quechan are people of action. And the action itself is the prayer. We did this run to Ward Valley to ask our Creator why we were having so much problems and why we are going through all these difficulties of what was happening to us. We wanted an answer, and we also wanted to have a vision. And my cousin told me, said, you have followers. You have these kids. They're your followers. Why don't you get them to run up there? So we said, how we're going to do this? And I said, well, we have to stop at every tribe, the Kukapa, the Quechan, the Mojave, and Ward Valley. That's 4 stops we're going to make. And each stop, we have to do something special. We had to select certain mountains, and we had to do certain purifications with the arrowweeds. So here's this little kid standing there listening, fat ones, short ones, tall ones, all these little different colors, sized warriors. They're all going to do this for the people. And they did. And I sang the song, they danced, and we went, And we're going to the north now. We are going to fight this nuclear waste, this unseen enemy. But now we do it with this, Kumat. Near the place where we came from long ago, where the north wind starts in our beliefs, where it comes through. And you draw a line, a boundary that they cannot cross. The north wind is the maker. That's his power. That's him. That is one. So this is where we went to.
Today is to protect the reservation for
These kids saw it. They heard it. They were a part of it. They went and they got smoked. For some of them, they danced. They took part. They listened, which was the most important thing. They listened. Today, we don't know how to listen.
Moka, ayaw.
But you can see as on their last day, the 4th day, they're quiet. They were maturing. They were facing the final step through this area. This is the day we had to run into Ward Valley. And we made it. We ran into Ward Valley. And we walked into the camp like we're here, The troops have arrived. These kids, they ran to save the people, unselfishly. And when they grow older and they become leaders, Ward Valley will come back to them in their minds what they had done. So it's like a new generation that's going to be born from this. But we brought back the old ways, and we brought it into the contemporary world. I mean, we're not out there in costumes doing this. I'm not wearing a costume because it was the words that were important. It was the story that was important. It's not what you look like. It's not what you wore. But there are certain symbols that you should have. There are certain symbols that you never let go of. We did it quietly because it was a tribal thing. We did it because it was special between our Maker and us. But we included everyone. It was for everyone.
Amasai mo sakura, egawa sakura,